Well, good morning, church here in Sanctuary and at Shine Forth. Today we begin our new sermon series, That Your Soul May Prosper. In this series, the pastors will re-preach 8 of John Wesley's most important sermons for today. And no, don't worry, we are not going to just read his sermon, right? None of you will understand. It took us, I think, the pastors, if I can just say on behalf, we also don't understand, but we try our best, right? But we have rewritten it, right, for a time such as ours. You know, on September 11, 1775, at the age of 72, John Wesley posed this question to members of the English church. He asked, "What is the important question in your life?" What is, and really, he really means what is the most important question in your life? And this is an existential question, but it's also a relative one, right? Because what is important to one man might be irrelevant to another. But yet, Wesley says there is one question that's important for all, especially for all who profess to be Christians, and that is the question of the soul, right? Question of the soul. In the text that was just read for us, we heard Jesus' most famous rhetorical question. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? And you know, the different translation will translate the word soul differently. In this translation, which I'm using, the ESV, it's translated as soul. In other translation, it might just translate as life. There's just one word actually used, whether soul or life, is the Greek word psyche. But depending on context, it can actually give a better meaning when it's translated either life or soul. And in this particular verse, I believe that soul is a much, much better, richer, more accurate translation. Soul as the life, the life force of every human being, right? Soul as is our very existence, more than just our bodily life. Shall we read this together? Especially the kids. I want to hear the kids read. 1, 2, 3. For what will profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? Now, why is this a rhetorical question? Because we already know the answer, and the answer is nothing, right? Nothing will profit a man or a woman if she gains the whole world but loses her soul. Now, here's a curious thing. How can the whole world be worth less than a soul, right? So kids, you can also answer this. This is a mathematical question, right? How can the whole world be less than a soul? It's like saying infinity is smaller than 1. It's like saying all the water in the world's ocean is less precious than the water in the cup that I'm holding right now. Or it's like saying that this whole piece of land at Barker Road is worth less than a seat, right, in this sanctuary. Sounds ridiculous? Well, it depends. It depends if there is a mad gunman in this campus right now, and the only place that he dares not enter is this sanctuary. Why? Because the grandmother that this gunman fears most is worshiping right in here. Right? It's too bad for the concert hall, huh? Or if you are lost at sea and this is your last drink. Or if your soul is not in fact represented by the number 1, but by infinity. Yes, what if the soul is infinity and the whole world is but just 1? Friends, you have a soul. Tell your neighbor, look them in the eye and say, you have a soul. I can't see it, but you have a soul. Right? Your soul is precious, more precious than the whole world. Your soul cannot be seen, It is hidden at the core of your being, but it can be felt. It can laugh, it can cry, it can be delighted, it can be downcast. And yes, your soul can be cherished or it can be lost. And dear friends, you are a soul. Look at your friend now and tell them, you are a soul, right? You are an infinite soul, right? You are infinity. For what will profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? What shall a man give in return for his soul? Now, why would anyone in their right mind want to give up what is infinite for what is finite? How could anyone throw away the eternal for what is perishable? But that's exactly what men and women have done throughout history and continue to do today. But why? Why do they do that? Well, according to John Wesley, those who lose their souls make three fatal, what he calls fatal assumptions. Number one, obeying God will make us miserable. Following the world will make us happy. And we have all the time in the world to change our minds. All these are fatal, wrong assumptions. Now, these fatal assumptions have eternal consequences. Related to this, Wesley once shared an encounter that his friend Philip Melanchthon, the German reformer, shared. And so these are the words of Philip. When I was at Wittenberg, as I was walking out one summer evening with several of my fellow students, we heard an uncommon singing, and following the sound, saw a bird of an uncommon figure. Right, so this cartoon there, which my daughter drew to illustrate this. One student stepping up asked, "In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, what art thou?" It answered, "I am a damned, condemned spirit." And in vanishing away, the spirit pronounced these words, "O eternity, eternity, who can tell the length of eternity?" Now, why this spirit ended up as a disfigured bird, I do not know. But here was an incident that confirmed for Wesley the important question. The question about heaven and hell. A question that concerns souls that are found and souls that are forfeited. And so let's unpack these fatal assumptions. Number one, obeying God will make us miserable. Really? Why? What does God command all of us to do? What is it sum up by? It is summed up by loving Him and loving others. How can loving make us miserable? There's no logic in this, says Wesley. Your idea of God is flawed if you think this way. And these are his words in the sermon that he preached. Is it misery to love God? To give Him my heart, who alone is worthy of it? Nay, it is truest happiness, indeed the only true happiness which is to be found under the sun. And as St. Augustine taught us long ago, Thou hast made us for Thyself, and our heart cannot rest, cannot be happy until it rested in Thee. Or does anyone imagine the love of our neighbor is misery? Even the loving every man as our own soul? No, say Wesley, next to the love of God, loving our neighbor affords the greatest happiness of which we are capable. No, insists Wesley, loving God, loving others are the two greatest sources of happiness. We only become miserable when we fail to love, as our selfishness is exposed. Yes, loving can be painful because loving threatens to change us. And we don't like that. But isn't that actually a good thing? If there is sin and evil in our soul, don't we want to get rid of it? Wouldn't a cleansed and transformed soul bring us joy and peace instead? This is what Jesus meant when he says, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross and follow me. Whoever would save his life will lose it. Whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. When we deny ourselves out of love for God, when we give up our rights because we love others, our neighbor, even our enemies, we might feel miserable at first, but the result must always be enduring happiness, happiness from heaven. It might seem like we have lost something precious, but the truth is that we have found something far greater instead. Infinitely greater. No, obeying God does not make us miserable. Instead, it brings true, lasting joy. And so that's the first false and fatal assumption that misguided souls make. Second is this, that following the world will make us happy. What is following the world? There's a lot to say here, but in essence, it is chasing after what looks good, what feels good, what tastes good. It is seeking to find life's meaning and purpose in the wrong things and the wrong places. Right? It is seeking to gain the world but losing your soul instead. Now again, let's consider Wesley's words. To those in 18th century England who were preoccupied with what to eat, what to drink, how to enjoy the good life, Wesley cautions. He has gained all that gratifies the senses, all the delicacies of meat and drink. True, but can eating and drinking make a man happy? They never did, yet they never will. This is too coarse food for an immortal spirit. But suppose it did give him a poor kind of happiness during those moments wherein he was swallowing. What will he do with the residue of his time? This is too coarse food for an immortal spirit. Dear friends, our souls are meant for experiences far deeper, far more eternal than those that money can buy and markets can supply. Sure, God has given us many good gifts to enjoy, and like my friend last week preached, we should enjoy them, right? But as this last line beckons us to contemplate, how much of our time, which is ticking away even as I speak, how much of our time on earth do we spend pampering our souls, pampering our senses, playing with our toys, and building our castles? Perhaps that's why we are unhappy. We thought we have somehow reached heaven, but we seem to be tasting hell instead. No, we have followed all the rules. We studied hard, we got a good education, we worked hard, we secured a promising future, we invested hard, we built a nice retirement nest. And today we can walk into any shopping mall anytime and buy anything we want or eat anything we like. And twice a year at least, we can travel anywhere to see, to taste, to enjoy this big, beautiful planet. Well, congratulations, dear friend. You have followed the rules and you have succeeded in achieving the Singaporean dream, which is as close as gaining the whole world as one could get. The important question you now must ask is, how is your soul? How is your soul? Is your soul intact? Is your soul at peace? Is your soul healthy and happy? Is your soul experiencing a foretaste of heaven or hell instead? Now I'm reminded of, talking about traveling, I'm reminded of times where, it's supposed to be a heavenly experience, but when you land and something happens, not an accident, but just relationships, and your own soul struggling, that heaven becomes a hell. How could it be when everything seems to have been gained through all the planning, through all the investment? Well, today I believe the Lord wants to speak to 4 groups of souls. The first group consists of empty souls. And if your soul is empty, wherever you go, whatever you do, you will not be happy. No, friend, your soul is empty because there is no real life in you. Like many, you have spent your best years chasing what the world has to offer. In fact, there were times you traded your soul with the devil just to get ahead. As you sit here today, you are but a husk, an empty shell devoid of spirit and life. Why are you here then? Why are you here then? Because you have gained the whole world and now you want to keep your soul as well. You come to church because it's a safety net. It's like buying insurance. Just in case you die, you are assured that your soul will be covered, will be taken care of, or so you think. That too, dear friends, is a false and fatal assumption. You have become an empty soul. Your spirit has fallen asleep. You attend the worship service, but your heart is far from God. You do not love Him nor His people. As people stand to greet each other each week, you find it meaningless, even distasteful. As you watch the church concerns video, you have no interest whatsoever. It's time to look at your phone. Right? You have no concern for the well-being nor the future of God's church. All you want to do here each week is to pay your dues and get out and get on. In fact, I'm not sure if any of what I'm saying is making sense. If your spirit is dead, how can it be stirred again? Yet I ask for God's mercy upon you even now. I pray that as you come for communion later, your soul will be awakened once again. The second group are the wounded souls. You are alive, but you are hurting. You have fought hard to win the world, but you have acquired many injuries that are not healed. Who are the wounded souls amongst us? Well, usually they are the quarrelsome ones. She who is always finding fault. He who is always looking for bones to pick. Such souls are incapable of celebrating someone else's success, but they secretly delight when others fall and fail. Wounded souls wound. Hurting souls hurt. Dear wounded friend, those closest to you are grieved by your mean spirit. You need help for your soul. Don't ignore your pain anymore. Your spirit needs healing. Take the first step today. Talk to someone about what's going on inside of you. Ask for prayer. Seek forgiveness. Share your brokenness. Let Christ, the wounded healer, rebuild and restore your soul. Conflicted souls. Some of you here are confused, conflicted within. Your soul cannot find rest. You are here today because deep inside you do believe that the soul matters, but you are struggling. You have no peace and you are unhappy. And the reason is because you cannot fully let go of the world. You want to gain the whole world and still hold on to your soul. You want to have the cake and eat it. You have heard God's call to give up the world and to follow Him, but you have resisted. You thought by obeying God completely, you would be shortchanged. And so you have one leg in each boat. But as the boats drift apart, you are being torn in two. And that's why your soul is divided and restless. Jesus has said that whoever holds on to his life will lose it. So dear friend, be divided no more. Give it all to God. Take that leap of faith. Let peace return to your soul. Finally, we come to the prospering soul. How shall I describe such a soul? This is a healthy and happy soul. The prospering soul is not empty but full of love. Love for God, love for others. It is always looking for ways to give, to bless, to serve others. It is overflowing. In its many years, long years fighting the good fight, the prospering soul has been wounded many times, but the wounds have healed. Only scars remain as a grateful memory. And today, as part of their imperfect existence on this earth, prospering souls still suffer. They still suffer from heartaches, from disappointments, from bodily pains and ailments, but they do not grumble. They do not complain. Instead, with the Apostle Paul, they proclaim that we do not lose heart. Though our outer self is wasting away, our inner self, our soul is being renewed day by day. Finally, prospering souls do not fear death. In fact, they eagerly await that day. Prospering souls have given up the whole world for the sake of Christ and long for that day when the Son of Man comes with his angels in the glory of his Father. On that day, each soul will be rewarded according to what he or she has done in this life. No, there are prospering souls seated here today, here and in the concert hall. I've had the privilege to meet some of you in my 2 years here, and I hope to know many more of you. Thank you for showing us what it means to forsake the world, take up the cross, and follow Christ. Thank you for demonstrating to us Jim Elliot's words that he is no fool who gives what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose. And that is our precious, our infinite, our glorious soul. With this, let me conclude. Souls are still lost today because of 3 fatal assumptions about life. The last being that we have all the time in the world to change our minds. But we know this is not true. We do not have all the time in the world to decide for eternity. If God is speaking to you right now, do not ignore him. Do not delay. In his mercy, he's offering you a new beginning. Will you receive it? Will you receive it? If you will, bring your souls to the table of Christ this morning. Empty souls, ask the Father to touch you. Wounded souls, ask the Son to heal you. Conflicted souls, ask the Spirit to free you. Prospering souls, ask Father, Son, and Spirit to bless you that your soul may prosper as you grow in divine, perfect love. And this is how Wesley ends his sermon on the important question: will you have a foretaste of heaven now and then heaven forever? Or will you have a foretaste of hell now and then hell forever? Will you have 2 hells or 2 heavens? The choice is yours. Amen.